Here we go.
Awesome. Thank you, John. And thank you guys so much for joining us today. We today are having a introduction to Wallboard 2.0, which we're so excited about. This has been years in the making, and we're just over the moon with being able to share this and how things have been going so far. This really is a game changer. Already we were exceptional, we believe, obviously in many areas, but just a lot of the new features and the benefits for yourselves as end users and partners as well to share with your end users are just phenomenal. So we are going to take this time to give you an introduction and an overview. At the end, hopefully we'll have some questions for, you can give questions to John. You can obviously throw them in the chat and I will help facilitate that as well. And then as well at the very end too, I'm going to put some links in the chat for you that will be some supplementary information for you that will follow up on this webinar. So with that, I'm going to camera off and we're going to let John take it away. Go ahead, John.
Perfect. Thank you, Christine. So, hey, everyone. I'm John, and I'm our product manager here at Wallboard, and we'll be doing the demo today. But before I get started, I first wanted to talk about why did we do 2.0? What were some of our goals that we had as we were developing this? As Christine said, we've been working on it for a long time now. So why did we do it, and what was important to us for our end users as we were going through that process? So really, I think there's three things. The first being we wanted to make the end user experience better by improving workflow in the system. Now, I know sometimes workflow can be a very broad term, but basically, if we know that someone is just building playlists of full screen images and videos, and they occasionally need to bring in a dynamic slide like a LinkedIn feed, for example, then how can we streamline that process as easy and quickly as possible so that if you just need to make some quick edits, that you can do that. The other would be that we wanted to allow users to custom tailor their experience in Wallboard. Even for our existing users, I know we have existing and new users in this webinar, but especially for our existing users, you know that we have a lot of features in Wallboard and we're known to be quite feature rich. So how can we custom tailor the system so that if you don't need to see something or use it, we can simply hide it so it's not overwhelming, or you can customize things depending on exactly what you're trying to do in the system. Maybe you need to view certain devices, see certain device information, things like that. How can we go ahead and make that a little bit easier for you to manage based on your needs? And then the last and the most obvious one is we wanted to produce a more modern user interface and add features that would allow us to grow into the future. What I mean by that is, if right now we have a lot of small, medium, even large customers, but how can we also grow into the more enterprise market and have a software that appeals to both? Again, we have a lot of features, we have a lot of functionality, and some of those may be suited for, again, more of the SMBs and also enterprise. So we wanted to have a more uniform system that makes sense from both perspectives, and I hope that you'll be seeing this through the webinar today. Really quickly, I'll just talk about on my slide here, this first one. I talked about what our goals were, but what will we actually be covering today? So I think the first thing that you'll see is management is a little bit more scalable. We're trying to reduce the amount of clicks that you need to do in order to do sort of the daily tasks in a content management system like Wallboard. Again, we want to show off those custom tailored views. So if you need to sort of change Wallboard and how it looks depending on what your use case is, we certainly want you to be able to do that. New and improved playlisting. This is one of the more exciting things for me, along with the quick editing of templates. If you need to just build a presentation, quickly add templates and customize those, I think you'll be pretty happy with some of the things that we'll be covering later on. And then channels and proof of play. Channels, formerly known as campaigns in the 1.0 version of our system. We'll be showing off our new interface for that, as well as how we visualize proof of play, as this is becoming more and more important in digital signage and especially in a content management system. So with that being said, I will quickly just stop my presentation here and I will go ahead and share my screen and we'll get started. All right, everyone. So welcome to Wallboard 2.0. This, what you're seeing right here is basically our homepage. So for anyone who logs in for the first time, or you switch over to Wallboard 2.0, this is what you'll see. It looks a little bit different from the homepage that we had in 1.0, but hopefully I can explain it to you so it makes a little bit more sense. This homepage is meant to be an overview of what is happening within your Wallboard portal. What devices are online? What devices are offline? What contents are you editing more frequently? And how can we allow you to quickly edit them from, again, the page that you go to upon your initial login, which is the home page. So very quickly, you can see here that we quickly show you what devices are online and offline. You just hover over it. And then we can also show you brief information about your devices that are online, etc. You could also click here, hide that, and I can quickly see what's offline in just a couple of clicks. The other thing is we wanted to reduce the amount of clicks. So a lot of times people will just be coming into Wallboard because they need to make a quick change to a piece of content. Well, now we show you what was the last edited presentation, who made the edits, and then if you click this edit icon, it will take you immediately into that piece of content so that you can start editing it. Again, the idea is that we know the type of tasks that you're doing in Wallboard, and we just want to get you there as quickly as possible, make your life a little bit easier. Now that we understand the home page, let's go over here to our navigation bar and let's start explaining how we manage devices, contents, etc. So I'm going to go ahead and click on devices here. Now, the first thing that I want to point out is going to be how we remodeled the interface. You'll notice as I'm going into these menus, our UI is going to look different, and it can also be customized, which I'll cover later. The main thing that I want to mention is what are devices? Devices could be anything such as a screen itself. It could also be an external media player that sits behind the display. So when we're talking about what devices Wallboard works with, we like to say we're hardware agnostic. So this could be anything from Android media players, Windows, BrightSign. If we're talking about the displays themselves, we could be talking about commercial grade Samsung, LGs, and Philips. So there's a lot of different types of hardware that we can work with, but the idea is that we represent them all the same and you can manage them in the same ways. So if you have mixed hardware, you can have it all under one roof in a platform like Wallboard. Now, exactly how do we manage the devices and sort of what are we looking at right now? Well, these are devices, and as I mentioned, we can support many different types. So if I just hover over the icon here, it will tell you what type of device it is. In this case, it's a BrightSign. You can also see that I have folders up here at the top, and these are used for organizing your devices. So if I quickly wanted to see all of the devices in Los Angeles, I could click into this folder, and it would show me that, in this case, I just have one device in there at that location. So there's two things to this, right? We want to show you a quick overview of your devices that are online. This is this green dot, what type of device they are, and then of course where they're located. A lot of times that's what folders are being used for. Now the other thing is of course, how do we manage these devices? Now there's a couple different ways that we can do it. The first being I can right click on a device. Now, this will give me a lot of different options that I can use to manage this device. I certainly won't cover all of these right now, but a very common example is you want to assign a presentation or what we call content in Wallboard to that device. So I'll click Assign Content, and as you can see, it's going to take me to my content selector where I can view all my different types. In this example, maybe I just want to assign this countdown here. I'll go ahead and click Apply. And then you can see that the piece of content has changed. These are the names of the content that are assigned to the devices. It will change this snapshot here momentarily to show that, I am playing a new piece of content. Now, another thing that we sought out to do in 2.0 is we wanted to make things feel more natural in the system. So for example, in Windows and Mac, when you want to select multiple folders or files, you can just control click on them. You can do the same concept here. So I can control click. I can also click this dot. And as I do that, it allows me to select multiple devices or even folders. And then this toolbar will appear here at the top. So these are basically common settings that you can apply across all devices. Maybe I want to permission some of these devices. Maybe I want to manage the tags that are assigned to these devices. Or maybe I want to do something a little bit more. That's where I can click on settings. When I go to settings, what this is going to do is it's going to show me every management command that I can possibly use to manage a device. So for example, maybe I need to rotate the orientation that the device is in, either landscape or portrait. Maybe I need to move them to a specific folder or adjust the brightness or volume of the displays. Or what we just covered previously, maybe I need to assign a content. So if I click here, just like before, I could click on a piece of content, click apply, and that would send it to all those displays at the snap of a finger. The other thing that I could do is I could determine when the devices will turn on and off. So that's what we call working hours. I could quickly come over here, click on the edit icon, and then I could click on this drop down and start assigning when I want these devices to turn on and off. So every single day of the week, I want this device or these devices that I've selected to maybe turn on at 6 a.m. and maybe I want them to turn off at 11 p.m. When I click save, that will of course apply that setting to, again, all the devices at once. So again, the idea is that we want you to do things in less clicks. You don't have to manage every device individually. You can manage them all at once. And again, we give you a nice sort of user interface where you can start managing those. I'm going to click over here on the back arrow. And there's a couple more things I want to talk about here within this devices menu. And that is how we can custom tailor the views depending on what you want to do in the system. So what does that exactly mean? Maybe you have a certain task in the system that you need to do and you need to view certain device details. For example, maybe you need to find certain models of devices, such as like a BrightSign XT1145, or maybe I need to find all my screens that are in a portrait orientation. Well, if I come over here into the right-hand side, I have what's called a view selector. This is so you can custom tailor the interface of Wallboard depending on, again, what's more convenient for you or what task you're trying to complete. So I'll quickly click here. I can go to list view, and this will show you this first view. So this just gives you a little bit more device information, such as the uptime of the device, again, the type of device and its firmware version that's installed. And then there's even some quick actions that you can do, such as assign content, etc., maybe unassign a content to that particular device. Now, my favorite is personally table view. And this is because you can completely customize what you want to view and also what actions that you can apply to those displays. What do I mean by that? Well, if I come over here and click on this settings icon, you can clearly see that this lists all of our devices. But with these columns, this is the information that we get from the device that we can show. So for example, maybe I want to see a preview of my device as I'm looking through this list. And maybe I want to see how long that's been online for. So I'll quickly click both of these. I can maybe move this to the top because that's a little bit more convenient for me. And I'll just leave uptime here at the end. When I click save, now we can see our preview here. If I even hover over that screen, I can then quickly see a quick glimpse of what's showing on that at this moment in time. But you'll also notice that unfortunately our names are now being cut off. Well, this table is fully responsive. So a lot of times when you have multiple locations, you may have devices with long naming conventions. So again, this whole entire table can be customized so that everything is nice from a view perspective, but also you can get the information you need depending on the task you're doing. For example, maybe I just noticed that my Dallas screens do not have proper tags assigned to them like the rest of my screens. Well, I can come over here, again, click on the settings icon, and I can even change the actions that I can assign to the display or what management commands I can do with those. So I'll click on manage tags. I can maybe move it here to the front, click save. And now you can see I have this button here. If I click it, it will quickly allow me to assign my Dallas tags to these screens. I could also, of course, multi-select them just like you saw before. And I see that toolbar just like we saw when I was in a different view. So I'll just add another tag here, Dallas, press save, and we're good to go. Map view is another, and I think that this is one of the more interesting features that we came out with in 2.0. Now, maybe for small deployments, this isn't going to be that useful of a feature, especially if they're at one location. But let's say that you have devices all over the world or all throughout the United States in different states. If you have different locations, this is a great visual to quickly navigate to those screens and manage them. but it's also a great glimpse into where your screens are, which ones are online and offline. In this example, I'll just quickly zoom in here, and you can see that I have some screens in Kansas City here. And it even shows me where those screens are located in this particular building. So if I click on this, you can even see that I can change where this is located. So maybe if it didn't quite get the location right of the device, you can customize that. I can also click on the settings icon, and it will allow me to manage the screen just like we saw previously when I was managing and editing some of the settings on the devices. I'm going to click out here. I do want to show you a quick example, though, of what it looks like when we have many screens. So let me go ahead and switch tabs here. So this is a large deployment that we have throughout Hungary, so quite far away from the United States. But as you can see here, there's tons of devices in this environment. There's about 383. And as I zoom in and out, it shows me different sort of views here on where my devices are, or clusters as we call them. For example, if I click here on 6, it's going to zoom in a little bit more, and it's going to show me where some of the devices are in that cluster. I can even click further, and it's going to take me to the exact building that those devices are located in. Again, I can click on it and start managing it just like any other device. So I think map view is extremely helpful. Definitely if you have larger environments, multi-locations, I think that this is a nice feature to add, especially as we go into 2.0. All right, let me just go back to the other view here, and I'll share the screen. All right, perfect. So let me go back to the main view here. Now, the last thing that I want to show, there's really two things here. The first is, as you're starting to get more used to 2.0, you want to learn about it. We have made a tutorial playlist that you can go through and watch videos on basically A to Z how to get started in Wallboard, anything from adding a screen, creating slides, contents, and even scheduling, permissioning things, etc. If you're in a particular menu where we have a tutorial video on, and we have knowledge base articles on our doc site for any questions you may have. But in this example, maybe I want to learn how to either manage my displays or devices or add a new one. I can quickly click here on the question mark icon, click on video tutorial, and then when I click play, it's going to start teaching me on how to add a device in this case. I could also come here and it's everything subtitled. So if you do want to view the video in a different language, everything's transcribed so you can view it in a language that is most comfortable for you. So the last thing that I want to point out before we move on to contents is our ability to quick filter. Again, these are features that we added. Again, it can help, maybe the small to medium size end users or deployments. But especially in the enterprise, being able to filter through hundreds of displays is going to be very, very helpful when you have a specific task you need to do. A good example would be if I click here on filter, you'll see that there's even quick filters. So I can actually set up presets if I quickly want to find certain devices in my environment. In this case, I'll just go ahead and add a new filter. And maybe I want to view all my Android devices in this case. I'll go ahead and click Android. I can even add more filters if I want. I'm not going to for now. So I'll go ahead and click filter, and I can quickly view those two devices here. If some of your devices were in folders, it will go ahead and quickly show you them here. So you can filter at any level you want, but this is just a way to quickly find your devices if you need to. So let me go ahead and exit out of here. And now we're going to move on to the really exciting part, and that's contents. Now, I'll go here to this view here and click on all. As you're first going into 2.0, you're going to see that there's quite a different type of assets that we can manage in the system and create. I'm going to kind of work backwards here, especially for people that have recently came from 1.0, so it makes a little bit more sense. If you're new to Wallboard and this is your first time seeing 2.0, then even better. If I click on contents here, contents are the content editor as we know it today. So for anyone, again, who's been with Wallboard for some time, you know that we're quite well known for our content editor. It's a blank canvas where you can basically design your presentations, even more advanced content like interactive content, content that maybe has data triggers. For example, let's say someone hit their sales quota and we need to jump to another page where it says, hey, congratulations and well done. You reached your quota, and it acknowledges that person. Anytime we're talking about something a little bit more advanced, your mind should start going to, I'm creating a content in Wallboard. Not a playlist, not a slide, but a content. A good example would be if I quickly open up the editor here. You're going to see that this is the classic Wallboard editor, so don't worry, anyone. We didn't change anything. We will be remodeling this as we progress through the year, but we didn't want to touch the editor because we know that this is what everyone knows and loves. As you can see here, I have widgets, I have layers. So every time I drag a widget onto the canvas, it becomes a layer, and I can start editing it in this properties panel. Now, in this case, this is an interactive content, and that's why I used a content in this example. In this case, maybe I wanted to set up an interactive jump. So when I click on content, it then takes me to this content page where it tells the user a little bit more about Wallboard, how we manage content, our drag and drop functionalities, etc. So this would be an example of something that's perfect for the content editor. The key thing that I want you to note here is that we have a playlist in the editor because it's very important, especially when we're creating interactive content. When I want to jump from one page to the next, we need some place that you can build a playlist in this interface. However, if I leave this, there's one more example I wanted to point out when we're talking about content. And I'll actually go ahead and preview this. So in this case, I have again, a content that I created, but I have this zone here in the center. Whether you're embedding a playlist or what we call channels, the idea is that you can route content to this zone here, and it will continue playing through the playlist or combine multiple playlists together and start rotating through those assets. We typically see that there's two different types of content that people create as far as from a layout perspective. It's either full screen or it's in these sort of layout configurations where you have either one zone or multiple zones. If you start thinking that, hey, I'm making a zoned content, maybe you should start by creating a content originally. That is the term we now use for when either you need to create interactive content or zoned content like this. Let's see how many times I can say the word content. So let me go back here. Let me share this tab again. All right, perfect. Now let's talk about slides. What is the big difference between a content and a slide? Well, a slide is different because it's not multiple pages. It's just one page. It could either be a dynamic slide that you created. For example, maybe I'm showing a weather forecast that updates throughout the day. Maybe I'm showing a post from our LinkedIn feed that updates as soon as we make a new post. That's what we would call a slide, and that's what we would suggest that you use. Slides can also be templates, and this is a really, really important thing to note, is that a lot of the templates that we provide in Wallboard by default, those are going to be slides. So in a quick example, if I click here on this plus icon, I can create a slide from a template. And you're going to see a couple different options here, but go ahead and click on public, and this will take you to our public available template library. Now, what I want to point out here is that whenever you click on one of these templates, you can start previewing it on the right-hand side. So if that slide template had a video in it, if it has animations, etc., all that will be shown here when you're previewing it. In this example, this is a little bit more geared to the winter. So as it's starting to get sunnier here, I'll maybe go with something a little bit more generic like we see here. Now, there is one thing that I want you to note, and that is this quick edit button. We'll talk more about this in a second, but any of these templates that you see with this quick edit button, it means that when you start building your playlist later and you start combining media assets with slides and start scheduling them, if you ever want to just quickly make an edit without having to go into our full-blown designer, this is a great use case, which is our quick editing feature. And again, I'll show that off later. I'm going to go ahead and click next. We'll say that this is my Anniversaries 2 content, and I'm going to go ahead and click Create and Open. Now, the first thing that you're going to notice as we get in here is that we don't have the playlist anymore. Remember when I said that a slide is basically a one-page piece of content? We use the same exact content editor because everyone knows and loves it, and it gives you a lot of creative control. You can set your branding guidelines. You can use your colors, your logos. Basically anything here I can click on and I can move around and customize. It's all up to your creativity the template you're starting from, or sort of what you make out of it by customizing it with these properties. Now, because there's not a playlist in this editor, it means that have to use something else in order to combine, again, assets and these dynamic slides together, or templates. That's where we use what's called playlists. But before I move on to playlists, I quickly wanted to point out something. If I click on one of these widgets and I scroll all the way down to the main properties panel, you're going to see that quick edit property. Basically, what this means is that we are going to retain any of the branding settings or settings in general that you applied to this widget. And again, when we're building our presentation in our playlists, we're going to allow you to quickly edit these fields that have this property enabled without someone adjusting anything else. They can just adjust the information that are shown in these boxes. This will make a little bit more sense later, but the idea is that whenever you get first into Wallboard, you can create a template, or better yet, you can use one of our existing templates, customize it with your branding, your colors, etc. And then you can set up quick editing so that, let's say that every month you're showing your work anniversaries, you just drag the slide into your playlist, quickly customize it, and you don't have to reinvent the wheel and come into this editor every single time. Again, the idea is that we're saving you steps and we're allowing you to make edits quicker. We would love for you to spend your entire life in Wallboard, but we know sometimes you need to make a quick edit and get out. So that was the goal behind quick editing. I'm going to go back here to the home page. And now we're going to talk about playlists. So playlists, and just let me get out of this folder here. Playlists, again, is where we're combining all of our assets and slides into a single playlist so that we can actually assign that to a screen. In most cases, you will be assigning playlists to screens, not slides, not contents. For most people, as they use the platform, you will be assigning a playlist to the screen. Unless you had an interactive content, of course, then you would just assign that content to the screen like usual. But what do I mean by this new playlist editor? Well, if I click on the edit icon, you're going to see that we have a brand new interface. Now, playlist was formerly known as loops. So if you are coming from Wallboard 1.0, a playlist is basically an uplift of loops. And I think that you're going to find that it's a really nice change. And let me explain why. So let's start from left to right. And I think it will make a little bit more sense as we build this playlist. Over here on the left, these are the type of assets that you can bring into a playlist. So for example, media files, and you can see them all here. In this example, I could just quickly drag and drop one into the timeline, and now it's an asset that will play on that screen. I can also come over here to slides. Now, slides and templates are the same exact thing. A slide is just again, a slide that you have not made a template or you don't want other to use quite yet. However, if I go to templates, you can see that these are all the templates that I've made available to everyone in my portal. In the same way that I dragged and dropped an asset, I can do the same thing here. So I could, for example, drag this here, and I could drag this here as well. And I could change the order if I need to. I can even bring in other playlists within a playlist. Now, I know that sounds like kind of an odd concept, but the idea is that you can bring in playlists within a playlist to combine multiple playlists together. A lot of times this is used when you have more of a corporate environment, or you have multiple locations where maybe someone's centrally managing them, but you also have each location managing their own content or playlists. So again, anytime you're having to merge multiple playlists together, like maybe you want to play one slide out of the corporate playlist, then play another slide from your Dallas playlist because this playlist is assigned to Dallas, that would be an example of where you would bring those into the timeline. For right now, I'm just going to focus on media and templates. So let's go ahead and click on templates here. But before I explain our quick editing feature, I wanted to talk a little bit more about the timeline. So as you can see, I can quickly drag and drop these, change the order they play in. I can even come here and change how long these assets will play for. So if I want to change these all, I can. The other thing that you can do is if you find that this is a little overwhelming, that the icons are too big, and as you're adding more and more assets, like I'll do here, just really quick. You can either drag them or double click it if you think it's quicker. It's just whatever is simplest for you. And then from there, I'll just go back to templates. But if I click over here on these three lines, it allows me to adjust the view to a more slim view. So when I was talking about customizing your view, this is what I mean. If most of the time you're creating these large playlists because you have a lot of information that you need to include, then we will allow you to trim down the user interface so that it's a little bit easier to navigate. Again, I can change the order things play in and change the amount of time they play for. I'll just change it back to this view. The last thing that I'd like to point out, again, is the quick editing feature. And I think that this is probably one of the more powerful features that we added to 2.0, because we always get the question of, can I allow someone to only edit a certain widget? I don't want anyone to mess up our branding guidelines that we've put into a slide or a template, because we have certain branding guidelines, fonts, colors, etc., that we need to use. And we just want people to update the information. So that's why we introduced quick editing. So this is that same template that we added previously here. So I'm going to go ahead and drag and drop it into the timeline. And now you're going to see, do you want to edit in the quick editor? I'm going to click edit, and then a new interface is going to pop up. So as you're making your quick edits, the idea is that it will change in real time in this canvas. So for example, this is going to be for my Dallas office. So I'll click here, and then I'll select Dallas and confirm. Now the background's of Dallas. And maybe I don't want to show work anniversaries. Maybe I want to show work birthdays. And then over here, maybe I can start changing this information. So maybe if it's March, we'll say that, if I can spell correctly, that my birthday is on March 1st. And I'll just continue applying my edits. The other idea is that a lot of times someone may have a longer name. Maybe we get into December, and December is more text than March. So we want to make sure that everything can be sized correctly. Well, wherever we set up those boxes and how large we made them and the properties we assign will determine how the text will be displayed. Now, in this case, I can type as much information as I want in here, and it will continue to resize. It doesn't matter how much information you put in here. I'm going to quickly reset it, but the idea is that essentially you can create a template once, and it is almost impossible to mess up as far as the overall style or the look or the branding of the asset. And the best thing is when you're finished, you just click confirm, and you don't have to go into the editor to make your changes. You've already applied them, and the asset or the slide is already in your timeline. So I think a lot of you will like the quick editor. Give it a try. Definitely try out our template library. For all of our partners, that template library is now available to everyone. So if you go into your Wallboard instance and you don't see those, just let us know. But we did also introduce a public template library that we can now deploy to everyone. The idea is that we can continue adding more and more templates, and it's a little bit easier for us to manage them. So we're really excited about that. The last thing that I wanted to mention here in the playlist is scheduling. So let's say that I, for example, only want my March anniversaries to show in March. Well, I can come to set scheduling, and very quickly I can say that, okay, maybe this should have started on the 1st, and I want it to end on the 31st of this month. I can even fine tune this, and I can maybe say it needs to play between certain times of the day. I can even say it needs to play during certain days of the week. I'm going to go ahead and click save, but before I do that, you'll also see that there's complex scheduling up here. What we wanted to do was we wanted to hide away some of the settings that people don't use 90% of the time. So if these are the settings that most people will use 90% of the time, we want to show those. But if someone's using this 10% of the time, I can click this, and they can quickly use our more advanced features without necessarily having to get lost in all of our features and capabilities right off the bat. So look out for these toggles. In this case, it allows me to schedule things for specific dates or a date range. So maybe I need something to play next week or the following month. I can do that. But that's what the complex scheduling is for. Again, if you see a toggle like this and it says complex or advanced, click on it and learn a little bit more about what those settings do. I'll go ahead and click save, but let me apply this again for the rest of this duration. Now, the other thing that I can do is I can now copy scheduling. So if I just click copy and I paste it, it now applies that scheduling to another asset in my playlist. What I can also do, and I'll just schedule one more here, I'll say that maybe this needs to only play for the next 2 days and click save. What I want to now show is just like what we had within our devices page is you can customize how you're visualizing this view for the playlist editor. So to make that look a little bit better, let me add just a couple more assets, and I think you'll see here in a minute of why I did so. The other thing that I forgot to mention is over here on the left-hand side, if you need to quickly get into a folders, like let's say you have multiple locations and maybe you have a folder that says the state an office is in, you then have another folder saying the city they're in, and then maybe you have another one with the building they're in. And you have to keep clicking into those folders to get to what you eventually want to see. Over here on the left, just go ahead and click on the folder. And then once you find your folder that you want to go to, just click here and it will quickly take you to that. So that's very helpful, especially if you have lots of folders, lots of assets. It allows you to quickly get to where you need to be. So I'll add one more asset here. Now, as far as changing the view, like I mentioned, I'm going to go ahead and click here in the top right corner, and then you're going to see that there's timeline and scheduler. Let's talk about timeline first. So this is why I started adding more assets, because as your playlist gets larger and larger, you may find it that small timeline on the right-hand side is a little inconvenient. So for example, if I wanted to quickly move this asset to the front of my playlist, I can just drag it and drop it like so. In this view, you can manage about a playlist of about 40 assets. I can also change it so I maybe need to show it in a list view if that makes a little bit more logical sense, and I can even do it in this slim view, and I can still change the order. The last is our scheduler view. So as you're scheduling, for example, these 3 that I scheduled here, you can click on them, and we show you a visualization of when your assets are supposed to play. So if you did come from 1.0, basically this is us consolidating schedules and only play. So I think that this is a much more intuitive way to do scheduling. And so this was our go at it here. Again, as soon as you unclick on something, it will hide that from the scheduler view. But the idea is that you can visually see when things are playing depending on when you scheduled them. Let me go ahead and click out of here. We'll go back to the original view. But that's what I wanted to share about our new playlist editor. Again, I think that this is probably the most common feature that people use, especially since a lot of people in 1.0 previously used loops. So give it a try. I think you'll like it. So let's get out of here. And the last thing that I want to talk about is going to be channels. Channels, if you haven't been accustomed to channels, or formerly known as campaigns, it's basically your ability to create, instead of us having a playlist editor where I physically drag in my assets and I form the order they play in, etc. It's the ability to create dynamic playlists based on the channels you've created. So if you think of it this way, think of these channels almost as like programs on a TV channel. You have certain shows that come on at certain hours, and you see certain content during those time periods where that show is playing. So if you imagine these as shows, they're all combined in 2 channels, and we can route these channels or the content of the channels to specific screens based on when you've set them to play, their location, and also tags. So let's go into a quick example here of how to create a channel. If you've used campaigns, I think you're going to like the new interface. So as I come into this new interface, we're going to work from left to right. First, let's start with what we want to play. We can either play content or media or a subchannel. Let's focus on these 2 for right now. Let's say that I want to play a piece of media. It's then going to ask me, how do I want to, or what type of media do I want to play? Do I want to specifically select it, kind of like we did in the playlist? Do I want to play media based on tags we have assigned to certain files? Or do I want to use our quick filtering as well to determine what we play? For now, let's just click specific. And maybe I want these assets to play for 8 seconds apiece. I can click on add, and I can quickly select my different assets. From there, I can say when it needs to play. So maybe it needs to play again from maybe the first of the month to the end of the month. And I can set again certain times it plays on and then where it plays. So in this case, I can select a specific screen. One's based on tags and then also based on quick filtering. Now, in your most common examples, you'll probably specifically select displays. But in the case of dynamic, it actually allows you to use tags, which are a little bit easier sometimes. Lastly, this dynamic quick filter setting is quite interesting because I think it goes a step beyond tags. With those quick filter settings, when we applied them to devices, we were basically able to see all the metadata that we receive about a device, where it's located, what resolution it's displaying in, is it portrait or is it landscape? So using quick filtering, it goes a step beyond tags. You can basically set your criteria for what displays you want this content over here on the left to be routed to, and that's how it's going to be sent there. So if I can sum up what channels is in just a couple of words, I would say we're creating dynamic playlists based on basically automations that you've set up in this sort of channel view, because everything can be assigned to screens based on tags or quick filters, whether it's content or devices. There's a lot of possibilities on what you can do here, especially as we start getting into larger environments and you want to intermix what content plays on certain screens. In this case, I'll go ahead, just choose specific, and we'll add a couple of displays. Once I click save, it's going to ask me to name it. So I'll go ahead and say that this is our new ad campaign. And I'm going to go ahead and save and close. So in this case, a lot of times what channels are used for, just some use cases. A lot of times these are used whenever you need to create your own internal ad networks. So again, maybe you need to start playing ads at a lot of different locations, and the ads are different because maybe you're showing different promotions in California as opposed to Texas. But the common denominator here is that when you're using channels or even playlists for that matter, you may want proof of play data showing how long something is played and how many times it's played. So think duration and impressions. If I click on analytics and I go to proof of play, you're going to notice that we have a nice new interface for displaying the metrics and how often certain assets have played. So when we first get in here, we can view uptime of our devices. So it will show how long these displays have been or devices have been displaying content. Or I can better yet click on contents, and this is going to show how content has played across all of our screens in terms of time as opposed to others. So for example, I can take a look at this and I can say, okay, well, announcements have played the most, but maybe why hasn't this presentation played as much as the others? I could click on media files, advertisers, channels, etc. And this is basically just what allows me to view what type of proof of play data we want to read. And maybe I'm not so much interested in the the last 30 days. Maybe I want to see how often these have played over the past week. I can view it here. Better yet, I can also change how this is visualized. So maybe I want to click and view it in a pie chart. I can quickly see that my countdown content has played way more than everything else. And maybe I need to adjust the saturation or how often this event announcement plays because it seemed to has played the least out of all of my assets. If you're more of an analytical person, you can also come over here to table, but even better, heat map. I can quickly view based on the color of red what has played more than others. Again, we can quickly see the countdown content has played the most, whereas maybe these ones that are in white have played the least. So again, just a nice visual to know what's going on within your environment. You can also even generate this data into a spreadsheet. So if you do have to give back proof of play results to advertisers or even just internally, this is a great way that you can do that. Just click the download button and it will download an Excel file for you. The last thing that I mentioned or that I want to mention is going to be user profiles. Now, you've noticed that I've showed you a lot of different features and things within Wallboard. You may see something like channels and you go, I'm completely fine with playlists. I don't necessarily need to be, I don't need to use channels. I also don't want my users to even see channels when they log in because I don't want them to get overwhelmed. Well, that's where I can come in here and I can click on my different user profiles I've set up. Now, these are ones I created, but for example, I'm going to edit the rules on what my basic users can see. In this case, you can see that some folders are green and some are red. In this case, if I click on channels, you can see that I have hidden all the channel options from this end user. So if you assign this user profile to this user's account, whenever they log in, they won't see channels, they won't see analytics, settings, or network details. Um, there are so many more things that we can fine tune within this interface. For example, even in the content editor, maybe you want to give a lot of functionality, maybe you don't. Maybe you know that you're not making as many interactive presentations, you're just using certain widgets, and you don't want to overwhelm your end users with certain features that they won't use. Again, in our editors, you can even fine tune what exactly they'll see. So this is a pretty powerful feature. I think this coupled with those customizable views, it really allows you to fine tune your experience in Wallboard. So if you don't want to see something, you don't have to, etc. So as we wrap up here, this is when we will start the Q&A. So if you have questions, please put them in the chat and we will go ahead and start going through those. Alrighty here. Let's just go through here. Let's see here. So Kyle, would you please review assigning a content to a zone? Kyle, we actually have, just because I know we're short on time for the webinar, I know that we have a YouTube tutorial series and it covers exactly that on how to create a zoned content. I'll also even, if that video doesn't help, just reach out to me or the support team and we'll make sure that we send you the right video because there's one video in particular that will help out with that. Let's see. Can you add an audio backing track to a channel? If so, how would you make that backing track stop playing if a video's audio in the playlist needs to be superseded? So we can mute videos. So if you would imagine when you're setting up your channels, you would create a content. You then create a zone with a channel widget, as we call it. And what you can do is whenever you're assigning those videos in your channel, you can mute them. The other thing is that whenever you're creating that content or the layout that you want your channel to play in, you can basically set a background audio. So that will continue looping as the channel is playing in the background. But as far as when you're creating the channel or a playlist, just look for the mute button for the video. It's just a setting whenever you click on it. If you can't find it, just let us know. But that should help you with your issue. All right. Would you please explain any differences or benefits using file validity versus the new scheduling start and end dates for each asset? Yes, coming from version 1 and really liking the updates. Thanks, Dave. To answer your question, I would say the biggest differences between the two is that whenever I come into files, whenever you upload files now, you can immediately set a validity. But a lot of times why people don't use validity is because they don't want to micromanage the validity of their files. I mean, if you can imagine how many files you upload into Wallboard, someone may not necessarily want to micromanage it like that. So in that case, when we're doing scheduling, or the alternative, I should say, when we're doing scheduling in the playlists, basically, whenever you drag it in and you schedule it, that's when you're assigning the scheduling. So if you think it's more convenient just to apply validity whenever you're uploading them or after the fact, you can do that. But I typically prefer to do it in playlists because I don't want to go through every single asset, assign validity, things like that. I only want to assign scheduling when I use it. But I know there's various use cases, so I can imagine that validity might be helpful for whatever you're trying to do. Again, if you have questions, just let us know.
Hey, John, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yes. Can you hear
Oh,
me?
perfect. Sorry. There's also on the Q&A tab, if you click on that next to the chat, there's a ton of questions in there too. I know we won't get to them
Perfect.
all. But maybe what we could do as well is we'll compile these questions and we'll do our best to either via an email get some of these answered for you as well, just so that you know that we're not ignoring them. There's just a lot that have come in. So
Yeah, yeah. A good, let's see here. Is channels replacing schedules? No, channels is not replacing schedules. Channels is just think of it more of just a more robust way of routing content to certain screens. So honestly, you could use channels and use, or not channels, playlists and use our scheduling in there. That's probably what I would advise. If you want to use channels, you can for scheduling. But if you're looking for something just super basic, and I think I know your use case, Mazen, use playlists and then just schedule those assets in there. I will say, if we had time, I would definitely go through it. Be on the lookout on our LinkedIn and our other social media pages. But we're actually coming out with a new scheduling interface. If you used schedules in the past, you probably liked the interface that we had where it looked like a nice schedule, kind of like what we saw in playlists for scheduling. But we have a new interface so that we can override what plays on a screen. Like, for example, let's say there's an event. I want to quickly play, hey, welcome, customer XYZ. And then as soon as they leave, we want it to just assign back the regular content. We do have a solution for that. It will be called schedules like you knew it in 1.0. So just stay tuned, bear with us, but it's coming very, very soon. Dakota, 1.0 schedules versus 2.0 schedules, will they transfer over or will we need to recreate our previous schedules? No, you will not have to. We certainly would suggest that you start scheduling what I showed within the playlist editor. But when you go over to contents and, oops, I'm not sharing my screen anymore. Wish I would have known that. So sorry, maybe as I was explaining things, I didn't make too much sense. Um, Whenever you come over here into your contents, you're going to see that there's schedules here. This is something here that is just temporarily because we had a lot of users from 1.0 and we had to convert over your 1.0 schedules to, into 2.0. So you won't be able to create new schedules in the old interface. But if I did have any pre-existing schedules, unfortunately, I don't have any here, but you would just be able to click the edit button and it will take you back to the 1.0 interface where you could manage schedules just like before. Again, we don't want to prevent any functionality or break things for you. So that is why we have this here for any pre-existing schedules that you may have had from 1.0. When should we plan on moving to 2.0? Okay, this is a great question. This is how I would do this. Of course, we know it's going to take time for everyone to get used to 2.0. I mean, even admittedly myself, I was so used to 1.0. I mean, it's almost like a Microsoft update. You get used to one thing and then you're like, whoa, Teams is different now. You just got to get the muscle memory down. It may feel a little awkward at first, but after like a week of using it, it will almost feel more natural. It will just appear to you. I don't know how else to explain it. But I would start using it now. If you have customers who are using 1.0 and have gotten used to that, I would maybe just, and if you don't know how to get to 2.0, uh, you'll see this button here. Just go ahead and click this up here at the top, and that will allow you to view their portal in 2.0. So when I was going through, like if they had loops that they created, you'll be able to click on those loops and it will open up in the playlist editor. So you can almost get a feel for what your customer's experience would be like prior to switching them over. However, for any new customers, I would certainly recommend that you start using 2.0 immediately now. The reason why I say that is because it's just an easier experience. You don't like. I think a lot of customers today are going to just be using playlists and slides. Now, we would certainly love to build interactive content, data-driven content in our content editor or contents as we know it today, which people will continue to do. But I think your average user will probably live in either slides or playlists. So the more you can get used to it, the better. All right. I have 3 minutes before I get cut off here.
I'm actually
Oh,
showing less than that, but
okay.
just in case everyone, not to be rude, but the webinar does cut off at time. There is a ticking timer here. So we just want to make sure too that a couple of things, again, I did put links in the chat, but we are going to email everyone that registered for this with the replay of the webinar, plus all the links to the landing pages and the trainings that John's talked about. Please also know that this is just the beginning for 2.0. I mean, this is a lot. This is exciting, but there's so much more to come throughout the year. Robert and his development team are still working on some amazing changes. So there'll be lots of exciting updates to keep communicating to you all. I've also taken screenshots of all the questions. So we are going to do our best to answer everything, whether it's just more emails we send to you, but not to worry. And of course, we're always here. So feel free to email myself. You'll see my email in the, or my email address in the messages I send out to you all. And I'm sure you already know John as well, but we are all here to support you. So yeah, I mean, I guess we'll just try and stay on until we are rudely booted off by the platform.
I got 10 seconds. Thank you, everyone. I really appreciate it. I hope you're excited for 2.0. There was a question, are we moving people, forcing them over to 1.0 right now? We are not, so don't worry about that. And, oh, we're still live. Perfect. Okay, so yes, to answer your question, Dave, you said, when is Classic Portal no longer available? How much time do we have to train our clients on 2.0? There's no timetable right now for when we're going to get rid of the 1.0 interface. Again, we know that it's going to take time for your users, even for you to get used to it, let alone your end users. So we're not forcing that upon you. Now, I'm sure there will become a time later when we do have to make the switch, but we don't want to ruffle any feathers. We want to make sure it's a good experience. So that is why we made the decision not to force people into 1.0. I would certainly reference that training program that we made. It's a YouTube playlist for right now, but eventually we'll have an actual like training portal you can go into. And it's almost like module based. So if you want to learn about adding devices, you can learn about that. If you want to learn about creating users, you can learn about that. And everything will be sort of sectioned off, and you'll even get like a certificate at the end of it. So yeah, don't worry about that. But as soon as you can start learning 2.0, I would certainly encourage it. Dave asked, is there a dark mode or a theme coming soon? I don't think so, not that I know of, but that does sound very exciting. We have Mr. Robert Simon in the call here. So Robert, take note of that, a dark mode perhaps. Um, Let's see here. I think I got to all of the questions. Yes, there will be a recording. I think Christine said that she will send that out. So no worries there. Um, let's see here. Just going back through the list to see if there's anything that I missed.
Robert, you just said that in the chat. We'll come for sure. We are already working on it. I guess that means it is coming.
There we go. And that's the wallboard guarantee.
Yeah.
Let's see. Okay, that's all the questions I can see for right now. I'm sorry, there's a lot in the chat, so I apologize if I didn't get to all of your questions. Again, we did keep track of the chat, and we'll be able to go back to those. But again, lastly, just thank you everyone for your time. I know, again, it will be a ramp up to start using 2.0 and get comfortable with it. But I think in the long run, you'll see that it's a much better experience, and we want to continue improving that. So if you do have feedback, if you do have questions, please reach out to our support teams. At least in the US, it is support@wallboard.us. So if you do have any questions, please reach out to them. But thank you so much, and thank you for being on the Wallboard journey. Thanks.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day or evening.